And for me, with Diego Maradona, the most important stage of his life as a footballer, as a soccer player, was here in Napoli. So that's really why we chose to make the focus of the film 7 years in Naples. So I have always been a big football fan. I've always played football, watched football. So Diego Maradona has been in my life for a long time, and when the opportunity came to make this film, I thought it would be an interesting one to do as the number 3 of my documentaries, after Senna, after Amy, to do Maradona, because sadly, tragically, Amy and Ayrton Senna died very young. Maradona's still going, still doing something crazy somewhere in the world. He's older and he's alive, so I was able to meet him. So for me, the reason for doing the film was it would be a different challenge. The first thing was when we were trying to do the deal to get the image rights for Diego Maradona. The good news was that Diego was a big fan of my film Senna. Then while my producers were negotiating the deal with him, Amy was winning awards and he won an Oscar. So on his Facebook page, it had a picture of me with an Oscar saying, this guy won an Oscar, his next film's about me. So this was a good sign. But then they did the deal, and the agreement was I would have 9 hours of interviews with Diego. And at the time he was living in Dubai. So I went to Dubai and I met Diego Maradona maybe 4 or 5 times, went to his home in Dubai. I would interview him in his living room. At the beginning, he was watching television, watching Boca Juniors on television while I was interviewing him. But slowly, we built up a relationship, and we started to talk, and he started to talk to me in a very different way, I feel, to how he's done interviews before. The way that I work, I don't bring a camera, I just do audio interviews. So I just speak to him, and all of the images comes from the archive. And I find that by working in this way, you get a different performance. I get a more natural Diego Maradona. I don't want him to perform for the camera. I just want to talk to him and to understand what happened in his life. Before I made the film, I'd never been to Naples. So I knew a great city, but I'd been to Italy many times, but I'd never been to Naples. And I guess maybe Naples has a kind of reputation and you were worried about coming here. Then I came here to make the film and I had an amazing time. The people were amazing. They love their football. I'm a Liverpool fan, and I think there's a lot in common between Liverpool and Napoli. So there's something about the people and the city and the kind of culture and the fact that in a way Napoli is against, it feels like the rest of Italy is very negative about Napoli. I found that very interesting. I didn't know this story. So for me, it became interesting to kind of understand Napoli and the people, and then to try to tell the story, to tell the truth. I love football. I'm interested in Maradona. I'm a fan of Maradona, but also I am interested in Maradona because he's a complicated character, and the city of Naples is a complicated city, particularly in the 80s. So I wanted to not be, I wanted to try to be honest. What we have is lots of factories working at the same time. I am doing interviews, so I will go with my team of brilliant archive researchers, and they will say, we think this person is important, this person is important. So I will come to Naples and I will interview people, or go to Buenos Aires and do interviews. At the same time, the researchers are looking for footage, everything. And then my editor is working in London. The editing is happening in London. Diego was living in Dubai. The story takes place in Naples, but most of the characters and the voices were in Buenos Aires. So I had to travel to all of these places. The film took 3 years to make. I do a lot of interviews. So I interviewed 80 people. So I interviewed Diego Maradona for 9 hours. I interviewed his ex-wife, his trainer Fernando Signorini, his biographer Daniela Cucci, some of the football players from Napoli, lots of people who were in the story. The same with Senna and with Amy. I tried to do my best to give my impression of the essence of their life. Diego Maradona is not an easy person to make a film about. He's not an easy person to get to know or even to get to meet. Many people have tried and failed. So I was lucky, I met him many times. What's interesting, what is a part of the story is this idea that Fernando Signorini says of there's Diego and there's Maradona. I would say in many ways, the interesting thing is, I was making a film about Diego, who arrived in 1984 to Naples, but I was meeting somebody else almost, a version of Maradona. And at times it almost felt like the person I was meeting wasn't maybe the most reliable witness to the story. The interesting thing when you're working on a film about somebody who's alive is everything that they say the truth? Or is your opinion more real than the person whose story you're telling? So I found that a very interesting challenge. Diego Maradona is very clever at creating stories, constantly changing his opinion, and today he thinks this, but maybe tomorrow he thinks that. And so my job is to try to listen, but then also sometimes to say, I disagree. And that's one of the challenges of being a filmmaker. You have to do your version of their life story.
Cuando vos entras a la cancha, se va la vida, se va todo.
Fue una carga ser tan famoso.